realize that the average doctor graduating from the best medical schools in the world today, on average, has 3 hours of study in nutrition? By the time you guys leave here, you'll have 5 or 6 times that much, just having spent a month here.
And it's not even good information.
Right. I mean, may well be mostly, you know, the same bogus nonsense they've been teaching for years anyway. It's not very useful. But even if it were, it wouldn't be enough to give them a grounding in what is likely the single most important thing they need to understand if the intention is to help people get healthy. And I believe that's most doctors' intentions. I believe most people who choose to practice medicine have the best intentions at heart. They want to help the world. They want to help other people. Then they go off to medical school, which they trust, and they don't understand that medical schools today are largely supported by big pharma, the pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies, you know, they start, it looks innocent enough, it doesn't seem like it's an ethical problem. Every medical student is given by the pharmaceutical companies notebooks and pens with the name of the pharmaceutical companies. Little relatively worthless gifts, no big deal, right? These aren't even doctors yet, they're just kids, they're just students. But what happens is they get in the habit of accepting gifts. And there's a very simple fact. There's an amazing book, which I can't think of the name of right now. It's written by a psychology professor in the United States, and it's become like a textbook for marketers, because it's all about the psychology of human interaction. And one of the principles is, I forget what they call it, but you do something for someone, and they're much more likely to want to do something for you.
It's called the foot in the door phenomenon.
The foot in the door phenomenon. That's not. Yeah, it's the law of reciprocity. The law of reciprocity. Okay, and it's an amazing book, which I had. I'm not sure if I still have. I have to see if I can find it. It might have walked away. But I'll find the name of it for you. Because if you're interested in you know how human beings work, it's an amazing book. If you are in a business where you want to influence people in any way, it's good to understand this, how these things work. But these drug companies certainly understand this, right? You have to understand that the wealthiest companies in the world know exactly what they're doing. They know how to get you to buy their products. And remember, their interest is not your health. I think I've covered this before. Again, I know at least 4 or 5 of you weren't here at the time we talked about this. But drug companies are interested in their bottom line, period. Okay? They completely understand there will be casualties. There will be losses. That's okay. That's just the cost of doing business. Some people are going to have to die. They're selling toxic products. They understand that there's going to be negative ramifications. They study this. They understand how much it's likely to cost them if they put a drug on the market. If enough people die, what are the lawsuits going to cost? They have all the data, and they make business decisions. Okay, remember, you know, if they're told, look, this is likely to cost $100 million a year in lawsuits, they go, awesome, because the license to sell a drug in the United States is worth, on average, $1 billion a year. So if they got to pay out 10%, that's okay. That's good business. Okay? In the last 30 years, when I broke my hip last August, 13 months ago, my intention was to fast. On Sunday, when we're closed, no one comes to work here. None of my staff work on Sundays when we're closed, unless I'm not here. And then there's always someone here if I'm not here. But the gardeners don't work, the housekeepers don't come to work, the ladies in the office don't work on Sundays. 3 or 4 of my staff showed up together to try to convince me to go to the hospital because they were afraid I'd done some serious damage. I thought I might have broken my back. And I figured, I'll fast. If I can't move in a week, then I'll go get an x-ray. I probably broke my back. It probably broke my spine, right? But on the second day, they came to convince me to go to the hospital, and I did. When I left there, there's one charge. It's crazy, by the way. I mean, I was at the hospital for 4 hours. I had probably 10 x-rays. And the doctor sent me out with some sleeping pills, which I'd never used and threw away, and some ibuprofen. And that was all included in my $50 bill. For the doctor and all these slides and these drugs, $50, something like that. So I came back here, and I'm not taking anything. 5 nights, not 5 minutes of sleep. I was in so much pain. Okay? On the 6th day, I said, I'm going to take 1 ibuprofen so I can sleep. And I did. And on the 2nd day, I took another one. And then I threw the rest away. In the last 30 years, that's the full content. That's all the drugs I've taken in 30 years. I have spent 0 money on doctors with the exception of trauma. An injury, an accident, where I've gone to the hospital because I've had to get sewn back together. Something like that. I have spent no money on doctors or medicine. Okay? I'm not a good client. Okay? What's my point? They don't want healthy people. Healthy people don't buy drugs. Their goal is to keep people alive, but sick, because that's who buys their products. You want to be clear about that, okay? And they now run the entire system. They support the medical schools, okay? They're the ones that determine what's happening. They have a lot of sway because they have lots of money to give to these schools. And the schools don't want to lose their grants. The medical schools and hospitals don't want to lose the money. So they allow themselves to be manipulated by these business interests. Okay, you want to be clear about that. Okay? You know, in order to operate successfully in the world, you have to have a good grounding in reality. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening in the world today. They want you to believe otherwise. You don't need any of that stuff. You guys get your bodies clean, successfully complete this process. You might need to do it a couple more times. That's up to you. Just the one process. Do it successfully and continue making excellent choices. You too will probably never need another doctor.